There we go. Good afternoon and welcome to Grays of Westminster live stream.
Hello.
Hello, I am Becky.
Constantine.
For those of you that don't know, I'm sure you do. Thank you everyone who's joined us so far. Today is I'm very excited. It's a very exciting live stream. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's a new format for us.
It is, because we are going to be featuring a few videos of some key, I'd say key speakers. Is that right?
Yeah, so iPhone 12 has been announced yesterday, and
that's right. Wrong release.
Wrong stream, I would say.
Yeah, wrong stream.
Nikon Z6 Mark II and Z7 Mark II, or Z7?
Z7
in your territory,
depending on where you are.
And we had some photographers to tell us what they think about it.
Exactly. Now, we've got a few very exciting speakers. We're also going to open up the floor, so please do send your comments, your questions, your speculations.
Have your say.
Exactly. This is also for you to talk to us. Now, before I forget, you may notice that down here, we have a new bar. So it actually, to explain to you what that says, it says Stream Deck Mini. Right? Now, what is that? That is a thing which means that I don't have to have the laptop in front of my face. I can just push a button and it will transition and do clever things like that. So
what we want to do is we want to work less on the stream. So we want to do everything by push of a button.
It would be much easier. It's another little upgrade to kind of take us to the next level. So we're putting our coffee fund money into that instead. So if you would like to contribute to the coffee/Stream Deck fund, please do so. And then the bar will fill up, hopefully, over the progress of the next couple of weeks.
Do take us to the next level.
That's right. To those of you who haven't watched a live stream before, obviously this is very much live, so you can put your comments, you can chat if you're signed into YouTube. Please also do subscribe. Press the button to subscribe and press the little bell icon so you know when we're going live. It's usually 2:15 every Friday afternoon. I'm really excited about our first speaker today. We were very, very lucky to have Joe McNally
in the house.
No, he was
in his house.
Send us a little bit of video. He's been working with the Z6 II and Z7 II. Actually, he was just working with the Z7 II.
Who is Z6 II?
But he was one of the Nikon ambassadors that actually got to see a pre-production model and use it. If you haven't been onto the Nikon USA website to have a look at the shots that they featured there.
When you say Nikon USA, you have to say Nikon USA.
Sorry, Nikon USA website. Then there's actually a video of Joe using the Z7 II and doing a whole sort of fashion lifestyle shoot, which is a beautiful video. What we've got is him actually telling us what he liked most about it.
We've got the worst part of this video.
No, we don't. We have him talking to us. So before I show that, I'm just going to very quickly go through your comments. AM was the first on the comments here. He says, hello, will Z7 II have better 4K image quality compared to Z7?
Highly likely, yes.
Yes.
We would 30 minutes video limitation.
Yeah,
yes, probably will still be there.
The limitation is there partly because shooting 4K at those high levels will overheat the camera. This is the issue that some of the other brands that I won't mention have with their unlimited recording time. So Nikon still have the 30-minute recording time limit in there. But of course, if you plug it into an external monitor like an Atomos, then the limit goes.
Yeah, you record basically to external device. Yeah. And speaking of 4K, we've got 60 frames per second now as well.
Yeah, that's right. So that is an improved in terms of video. I think one of the big things with the Z7 was because the autofocus system wasn't super fast. Inherently that translated also over to video, whereas now we have faster autofocus, so AF for video. Thank you. 10 stars to me. So now Mark Makes Photos says he'd love to know how you think the Z7 II low light performance image quality and AF compares to the Z6, which does what I need for what I shoot. So higher resolution, yes. So that's a really good question because the Z6 II is already an improved AF system. The Z7. Yes. So do you think the Z7 II will be faster than the Z6?
Yes, because we have two processors now, and because one of the processors is dedicated to autofocus, so you get faster autofocus speed. You also get better focusing in low light. So you got -6 EV thing, which basically means in low contrast situations, in a dark environment, it will pick up focusing a lot faster or will hunt less.
Right. So yes is the simple answer. The Z7 II should be faster than the
Yeah.
Z6 in low light, although you know, we'd have to try one out. We have a very exciting stream again next week where we should, all being well, actually have models in our hands to test out, and a few other goodies that we haven't yet been able to see. So
Ooh.
yeah, do you know about that? No,
Nah.
not yet. I don't tell you anything.
Nah.
So we've got some stuff coming next week, and we'll actually be able to put the Z6 II and Z7 II through its paces. John isn't sure what to do because he thinks that a Z9 might be announced and it might be $5,000.
Not this year.
Yeah, not this year, but who knows?
Quite time to save.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Start saving up. Steve says, hello, thinking now might be the time to go mirrorless Z6 II and 24-200 kit. That would be a nice combination if that does everything you want. Only thing I would say is that Nikon haven't yet announced the 24-200 in a kit form. They're sticking with the 24-70 f4.
Yeah, they keep promising us, but they never told us when. So
not yet. So hopefully that will happen. I've just suddenly a whole wave of comments just came in. I'm going to just scan through these very quickly. Yves Noirgine, that's if I pronounce that correctly, would be interested in whether the banding issue in dark regions could be fixed with enhanced processing.
It could be. We will find out when the camera is released, but I see why not.
But I'd imagine it would, because the sensor is the same, essentially, you would still, any of those kind of strange artifacts that you'd get with a 6 or 7 now, you'd probably see.
That was primarily on JPEG, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't in RAW.
Not as far as I know. Yeah. I think it also depends on what post-processing software you use, because if you use Lightroom, for example, sometimes it doesn't deal with raw files particularly well. You're better off using, for example, a Nikon software to convert, or a DNG converter, rather than actually using the Lightroom raw conversion.
I just use iPhone and put Instagram filter on it.
And then you're done and shooting JPEG, right? So Drazen asks if the Zeds will handle AFF lenses. So when you say AFF lenses, you mean not AFS lenses. I'm assuming there's no difference in that respect. You still have to have an autofocus, silent wave motor, or a pulse motor.
Yeah, I wonder if it just refers to DSLR lenses.
Just generally.
Yeah, but if it's just general AFS DSLR lenses, it probably will be the same. But who knows, maybe improved autofocus will also improve the focusing speed of DSLR lenses. You never know. Again, we need to have the camera in hands to test for that.
Yeah, because I've seen interesting videos where if you put like a D850 with a 500 PF alongside a Z6, say, with FTZ 500 PF, and you push the AF button, then it takes almost twice as long to focus on the Z6 as it does on the 850. No, it doesn't. It does work. But it does take twice as long to just make it all the way through the focus range. So I wonder if that will speed up. It's a good question, Drazen.
Yeah, it's a good thing to test in the future, isn't it?
Ask us next week. So in terms of tracking, okay, so Nick Can asks if the Mark II focusing speed and tracking will get close to the D6. Not necessarily, but we do have a very special guest speaker on later who will have more to say on that.
We can definitely ask him that.
Yeah.
The thing about mirrorless technology, well, DSLRs have pretty much kind of reached the level where they're so advanced that it's very difficult to improve on things. With mirrorless system, we still have a long way. So maybe 5 to 10 years where we will see an amazing performance out of them. So there's lots of things to improve in autofocus. Even the current top mirrorless cameras, I wouldn't say they're as good in focusing speed than, let's say, something like D6.
Right, okay. And in terms of, there was someone else that asked a question that was, I think, possibly a bit earlier. But anyway, we will test them out when we have them next week, and we'll let you know. Brian wants to know when we'll see the 105 macro. I'm hoping next year, but that's, I mean, there's quite a lot of lenses. Did you notice that they added a 400 prime and a 600 prime?
They did, that's new.
To the roadmap?
And also 85, I think 1.4.
Yes.
Or they said 85 S line.
Yeah, but they didn't say which one. So it'll either be, I guess, a 1.4. I doubt it would be a 1.2. It would probably be about that big if it was a 1.2.
Nice mug size lens.
That's right. So Igor asks about the glass in the EVF. Is it new or second generation? I actually don't know. Do you know?
There's a higher refresh rate. So that's, if you're referring to the EVF. So that should help. I don't think the optics are the same, but it's a higher resolution screen, I believe. No,
I think it's not. I think that
then it's just a higher refresh rate.
It's just which, to be honest, is not the end of the world, really, not having a higher resolution EVF, because if you compare Nikon's EVFs already with other brands of mirrorless electronic viewfinder, you will find that they are pretty not good. Let's put it that way. So the Nikon one was already very good.
Could be a lot worse, I would say.
It could be. You know what we don't have? I don't know why it's not working, but we don't have a sound effect when people contribute. So I have to say thank you to Nick for your contribution, and thank you very much, Jonathan, for your contribution. I don't know why it's not.
Thank you very much.
Working.
Do we have sound at all?
We have...
Can you hear us?
Yes, they can hear us. They just can't hear the widget, and neither can we. Right. I'm going to show this first video because I think that you will all quite enjoy it. Now, let me just do it. You have to fill this bit while I'm doing the techie stuff. So
we have Joe in his house in United States of America. And he used Z7. I'm trying to speak slowly.
That's fine. I'm ready now.
Are you ready now? Okay, here we go.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, it's going to be very exciting. We're going to switch over. There is Joe in his house. And
hi, Joe.
He can't see us, but
hi to all out there, and especially a warm hello to our dear friends at Gray's of Westminster, which is the classiest camera store I know about. Anyway, I was very, very fortunate to have an early crack at the Nikon Z7 II. Didn't shoot the Z6 II. My job was to generate an interesting assignment, an array of color and detail, fill the frame, and show the Z7 II at its best, to show how the camera chews through scenery and the dimension of it, the color of it. So I was super fortunate, and we had a great time with it. I shot a bit of fashion. I shot a friend of mine who's a saxophone player in New York City on the New York City subway platforms. And then I shot a little bit of dancing with an old-style checker cab. Those were the 3 contributions I made. And I had a blast and learned things at every turn. The beautiful thing about having all of the resolution of this camera is that I was able to seamlessly shift my field of frame, which is something people don't perhaps talk about all that much, but now I have so much detail resolution, I can easily shift from a standard DSLR aspect ratio to a 16:9 panel to a square, all with a flick of the button. And I really love the ability to do that because different scenes confront you in different ways. So you have an ability with the 16:9, for instance, to do something that's cinematic and sort of widescreen. You can go to square really easily, and that to me has always been a wonderfully formal way of approaching a portrait. So there's that for sure. The dual card slot absolutely rocks, okay? It means I can basically shoot all day long, okay? And I can dedicate that second card slot to whatever purpose I need. Overflow, backup, etc. Okay, the color and the resolution I've already mentioned, really dynamic. The autofocus has taken a leap forward. So I'm really thrilled about that because shooting in dim light, shooting in shadows is a challenge for any autofocus situation, and the camera handled it really, really well. So overall, I'm just, always astonished by new technology and how much technology is packed into these now small mirrorless packages. It makes our job easier as photographers. It expands the envelope of our imagination. And it simply is an assist in the field. It makes my job easier. All of this technology, flick of a button sort of stuff, automatic systems. The other thing that is also wonderful that continues with the Z series is there's an intelligent white balance, right? So you have your whole array of different white balances, but within auto white balance itself, you have a differentiation where you can retain cool or slide it to warm, all with retaining the automatic responses of the white balance system of the camera. Perfect. So I'm thrilled, super happy, great day for Nikon, and hopefully a great day for Gray's of Westminster over in the UK. We miss you guys.
Let me go. There we go. Now, thank you very much to Joe for that. That was delightful to both watch, and also he brought up some very Very good points, I would say.
First thing is he's got great, beautiful room behind him. Nice frames.
Yeah, with
filled
all I
great
know with
photography.
all the stuff that he's done, I would absolutely highly recommend going over to the Nikon
Going over to his house
his house
and
to
saying hello to him.
no hop over to the Nikon USA website, because there is that lovely video that he created with the Z7 II. It was a prototype, but they shot all the video and the stills on it, and it's just a joy to watch and to see how he works as well. So now let me just have a very quick look. The native ISO on the Z2 remains unchanged. This is true.
Yep.
That is, but because you got the processor for imaging and the separate processor for autofocus, you will find that the dynamic range is improved with the Z7 too. Although, to be honest, although the existing low light performance on both of those cameras, both of the current versions, is very good. I was never disappointed personally. Right, thank you very much to Ian for your contribution to the Stream Deck Mini Fund. Doesn't have the same ring as Coffee Fund. Jonathan's very specifically said it's for coffee, so I think we may have to take him up
once
on
we get the whatever the deck is called,
Stream Deck Mini.
the next fund is for my new Tesla. So let's just do this one first very quickly, and then we can move to important things.
This is a much harder target. So Jonathan asks, if I'm using the Z7 II for video, is it going to be okay with autofocus using my old F-mount lenses with the FTZ adapter, or get the Z lenses for this purpose? I know what my answer would be. What would your answer be?
Get them all.
No, that's not my answer. No. Essentially, the older autofocus lenses, although they are very good and natively on DSLRs, they perform pretty much flawlessly. On the Z cameras, specifically for video, autofocus is going to be a bit laggy.
Yeah.
You will also be able to hear the lens autofocus, because even though it's a silent wave motor, you do kind of get that shh noise. That's how I describe it. Shh. Technical terms. Thank you. And so what I would say is, ideally for professional video work, use the native Z lenses or switch to manual focus. If you are well practiced in pulling focus and manual focusing, you can always do it that way too.
Yeah. I mean, manual focusing is really nice. You got this little contrast detection. Just don't put it to max, because it's too forgiving. So you may find that it looks sharp with the all the false color in there, but actually when you take a shot, it's a little bit out of focus.
Right. That's with the focus peaking.
With the focus peaking, yeah. So, but also the advice there is, if you have to get the camera now and you can't afford the lens as well, use what you have, but then slowly upgrade to the Z glass.
Yeah.
Native glass is always going to be better, but at the same time, let's say they don't have 85 1.4G lens, they don't have equivalent, so I'll keep using that.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Yeah, exactly. Although the 1.8 is very good, but you could start off with one lens to do your video work. In fact, we use the 24-70 2.8 pretty much for the entirety of all our videos. We are currently shooting on a Z6 and 24-70 2.8 native Z lens, just so you know. And that's what our last few videos have been done with. So Becky mentioned that she beamed into Peter Gregg live in the Christmas room. Yeah, no, I don't think I watched a live one. I watched a pre-recording. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So Type A Geek wants to have the 24-105. I understand. I think that we are going to see a huge number of lens releases next year. I think that basically with the cameras now, we weren't expecting the Z6 II and 7 II, to be honest. I think it was let's say, a spontaneous reaction to what some other manufacturers had brought out. Should we say that?
They didn't have the camera months before, and they just kind of put it all together and just threw it out of the window.
I think that what they had planned it, but they didn't plan to release it quite so soon, and they were sort of driven on by the fact that there were other manufacturers producing things like Canon.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's a good 2-year upgrade cycle.
It is.
Because everything's up to date. I think, like, from feedback we're getting from pretty much from our customers and from the internet, it's very positive, because a lot of the issues with the first generation have been addressed. So, like, well, grip with buttons.
Yeah.
That's my personal.
That's the only thing that you took from the release, is that they got a grip with buttons.
2 memory card slots. That's a big thing. Well, autofocus improvement, which we'll still need to check how much.
Yeah.
But those were the main kind of important complaints, and I think they all were addressed.
I think so too. And also the new autofocus system, if you've used a D5 or a D500, then you'll know what having a dual autofocus system is like, where you have a processor specifically for autofocus. It does make a big difference to the speed. So I have very high hopes for that.
For me, 2 is always better than 1. In terms of this, having 2 processors, it's a godsend, really.
Exactly. Now, Gamers TV asks if he should sell their D850 and get a Z6 II. That's a tough one.
I would say, why not Z7 II? Because that's kind of closer to D850, at least sensor-wise.
But let's say you wanted a camera with slightly lower like I have a D850 and a Z6, right? So,
but you at this point, you're not going to choose one over another one, isn't it? You want to have them together.
I want everything. I want it all. Whereas it's true. It's a very good point. If you're replacing one out with the other,
I would keep both personally, if I could.
If it was feasible. But I would say, if you're happy with the resolution of the D850,
clap your hands.
Then then maybe have a look at the Z7 II, just because the resolution is the same. If you're not desperate for 45 megapixels and you're quite happy with maybe cutting down the resolution a bit and making those files a little bit more manageable, then the Z6 II is definitely going to be better, I would say, for cinematographers and for general purpose photography, really. If you're not printing billboards, then you probably don't need a Z7 II. Or if you're not aggressively cropping. I was very impressed with the shots that Joe produced from the Z7 II, because he did literally use all of the in-camera crop sort of functions. He was shooting portrait square, he was using the 16:9 crop, and it's quite nice to know that you've got so much resolution to play with that you can just do that. Right, now I'm just going to have a very, very quick... Terry, thank you for your contribution. I'm sorry that our widget's not working. I'll get it working next week. Have they included a dust protector for the Z7 IIs? Not officially.
What's this dust protector?
So it was a request that the firmware be changed so that when you're changing a lens, the shutter blades are down.
Oh, okay.
It's a small thing that we would really like them to do. It would be very, very helpful.
My worry is that I accidentally put my finger into the shutter and just... Because I like to eat and do photography at the same time.
And change lenses over your plate.
That's my worry. I definitely understand the convenience of that. But at the same time, I would be really worried about the shutter, because shutter replacement or shutter repair is very expensive.
So is a sensor, though.
Yeah.
But cleaning sensors.
Well, that's true. That's true. So we would advise you, though, be careful with your equipment and don't do what I do. So don't eat and at the same time.
Change your lenses over your plate.
Yeah.
Lots of excellent little pointers coming out here. Like someone saying, Maynex says, why does the Z6 EVF look so much better than similar ones? It does look better.
It's just good.
It's a very high resolution EVF. I don't know the technical specs of the other brand, so I couldn't comment on that.
They sprinkle some gold dust on it when they do it. So that's the reason why.
So official Mainspring says, could care less about the 2 card slots, but proper grip was most welcome. Yes.
Yes, I agree with you.
If you haven't seen our very silly little video that we did on the launch day,
it took us about 8 hours to shoot.
It was very challenging. So for anyone wondering why we were slightly losing it,
we laughed, we cried.
We mostly laughed. It was all his fault. And so one of the things that I thought was worth mentioning, and I don't know if it got cut out, it might have been in there, is that there's actually contacts inside the battery chamber of the 6.2 and the 7.2, which allow for those buttons to function. Whereas with the 6 and 7, you don't have the contacts, you don't have the right contacts inside the battery chamber. Why is that important? Because
the grip now can have buttons on it.
Yeah, but it does also mean that you can't use the buttons on an older body. So if you wanted to use an NBN 11 on a Z6 or Z7, as far as I know, although I'm still waiting for confirmation, as far as I know, it will act as a battery pack, but it won't give you buttons. Still waiting.
Okay, so the N10 will go into Mark II version of cameras.
And vice versa.
And vice versa.
NBN 11 on Z6 and Z7.
But without the button support, is that what you're saying?
Support.
Okay, that's something to confirm.
I am still waiting for a confirmation from Nikon on that, but that was kind of suggested, let's say, during the release.
But being devil's advocate, I would say that to have 2 memory card slots inside the body is also quite useful for a lot of photographers, especially for the ones who are shooting commercially and they just don't want to accidentally, well, lose all the images. Well, XQD NCF format is very reliable, and I haven't heard any stories of the card failing on someone.
No.
Just to have that feature of a second card, even as a backup, I personally think is quite useful.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's a couple of people saying, now actually there's some points being brought up. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you our next guest speakers video because they actually address those points. So it's Simon, just so that you can do a little...
Simon Stafford in the house.
Stafford in the house. So I have to do this. Well, you need to talk while I'm doing this.
So Simon Stafford sent us a video where he voiced his opinion about new announced cameras.
There we go.
Cameras.
Cameras. So... No, you can't. We're muted. Okay, now we're not muted. Now we're muted.
Hello, I'm Simon Stafford, technical editor at Nikon Owner magazine. Becky and Constantine have kindly invited me to offer a few thoughts on the new Nikon Z7 II and Z6 II cameras. So what I thought I'd do was highlight 5 aspects of these 2 models that I consider to be very important. The first is Nikon's decision to leave all the buttons and controls in exactly the same location. In other words, handling of the 2 new models will be seamless between them and the previous models. All the controls are there exactly where you expect to find them. Next is powering of the camera. In itself, the new battery, the ENEL15C, doesn't increase the shooting capacity by much, but importantly, taken over from the Z5 camera, we now have the ability on these 2 new models to not only charge the battery over the camera's USB port, but to also power it over the USB port as well. So we can shoot stills and video whilst powering across USB. Allied to power, of course, is the new battery grip. It will allow you to insert 2 batteries, obviously thereby more or less doubling your shooting capacity. But the grip itself also has a dedicated USB port. That will enable you to charge the batteries in the grip and simultaneously output data across the camera's USB port. So certainly for studio work, that has advantages. Next, there's the focusing system. And in particular, I like the way that the face and eye detect system have been enhanced. They're now included in video. But for me, probably the more important aspect is that for still shooting, rather than having this confined to the auto area AF area mode, where the camera can look for faces and eyes anywhere in the frame area, it's now offered in the wide area large option, so that the searching for faces and eyes is confined to the area bounded by the focusing point in that wide area large AF area mode. That's going to make life a lot easier for wedding, portrait and event photographers because they can compose their pictures and therefore position the subject and shoot accordingly, without having to worry that the camera is going to be picking up and detecting eyes and faces elsewhere in the scene than not the intended subject. Next, we have the buffer capacity of the camera. Very important for any photographer who's going to be looking to shoot fast-paced action or shoot lots of rapid bursts of images with very short pauses between them. Nikon have more than trebled the buffer capacity of the 2 camera models. That's a very, very significant improvement. Lastly, we have the stated increase in the refresh rate of the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, and a reduced blackout of that same EVF as you're shooting. Again, that's going to be very important, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that works when I get hands on a full production camera. But for now, those are my initial thoughts. Very much looking forward to testing the cameras in full, but there we are. In summary, I would say 2 very good, solid updates from the original Z6 and Z7. I think Nikon have made a very good job, and I look forward to testing the 2 cameras in due course. Thank you. Goodbye.
And thank you to Simon for
Thank
that.
you,
It was
Simon.
very, very helpful.
It's always good to have someone technical on the stream,
That's
isn't it?
very helpful. There were a couple of things that Simon brought up that I thought were very useful. One of which, as Andy was mentioning earlier, the AFI detection, being able to limit the area in which you have the face detection.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I mean, as a Z6 user, sometimes you find it's like, oh, the face is over there, but no, actually, I want to concentrate on these faces. It's very useful for events and big groups.
That's true. That's true.
For sure.
And also, Joe mentioned that the low light autofocus performance was good because like he does a lot in low light,
Right.
like with the flash. So just to be able to focus on the subject in the dark,
Yeah.
you know, and find the focusing, you know, break, like do it quickly. That helps as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Simon also mentioned the blackout thing. So is that where you put your face to the camera and how quickly it switches between?
Right, exactly. So quite often what happens if you're shooting with a Z6, for example, and you move your hand in front of the EVF to control the thing, then it switches over to EVF view, and then you're trying to push the buttons at the back, but it's
you know when you want
gone.
to preview the image and you press the playback button here, and then it just you don't see anything because your hand naturally covers the screen, the viewfinder.
And also there's even a sensitivity if it's a slight shadow of your arm. If it's on a very bright day, then that switches it off. So as a Z user, that is very helpful if they've changed that. I'm going to be very interested next week to see how quickly or slow the response is. Now, there were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. The NBN 10 will work. Rishi commented, oh, there you go. Thank you, Andy. That's great. But no, it's the other way around that I want to confirm. But thank you.
It's quite loud.
Drazen says, Dust Protector will have 2 modes settable by user, Constantine mode and everybody else mode.
I would love that.
Yeah. Brian asks price and availability for the new grip. So the price is $359 off the top of my head. As far as we know, they should ship around the same time as the Z6s, but we haven't had confirmation of the delivery date yet.
I would like to complain about price of the grip, but they'll all be in the same price, unfortunately.
Well, if you look like D850 grip is £350, like they're all,
We've all been there.
That's why the NBN 10 was 179 in
because
comparison.
it didn't have buttons.
It didn't have buttons on it.
You put the buttons on, it says double.
You could hot swap it. Typo Geek asks how much the NBN 11 weighs. I actually don't have that spec sheet yet. So
they didn't send us, did they?
They didn't send us the spec sheet for that, but
more to come.
Well, I don't know if we'll have one in the shop next week, but if we do, I'll let you know. Now, here we go. How many frames per second for 14-bit RAW? So this is a good point, Maynak. This is a very good question. The frames per second is 14
at
12-bit. Now with the Z6, it was 10 at 14-bit.
At 14-bit, okay.
And 12 at 12-bit.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I think it's going to be either 10 or 12 frames per second in 12-bit. I'd imagine it will still be 10 because the Z6 was also 10. I don't know if the extra processor will help out, but that's what I know thus far.
And Anthony Massey put 9 frames at 14-bit on Z7 Mark II, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Still plenty.
It's very good.
Yeah,
it's very,
I like
very
14-bit. It's nice.
I shoot. Yes, thank you. 14-bit RAW.
That's all I can say about it. It's
very nice.
I like it very much.
It's no problem for asking so many questions, Maynak. No problem at all. I'm actually slightly overwhelmed with the amount of comments that are coming through. So I had a script and it's gone out the window because I'm answering questions, but that's fine.
But also, what we want to ask you guys, what do you think about the camera? So don't just send us the questions, but also kind of share your opinions. Do you like the camera? You don't like the camera? DSLR users, do you want to upgrade? Is it something that will kind of push you over the edge?
They're
to
over
upgrade
there.
Oh yes, I'm looking at the laptop because I'm talking to you in the laptop.
Yeah, but they're there.
If you got DSLR, would you upgrade to mirrorless camera now with a generation 2 of the cameras? If you are a mirrorless user, you got Mark 1 camera, would you upgrade?
Yeah.
If you have something else, like
another system,
like Minolta, let's say, then would you switch to Nikon or Pentax film?
Well, actually, no, but this is a good question because I have admitted once or twice that I used to have Fuji mirrorless system. It was the DX system. I know.
It's fine, me too, I had as well.
But I never really got on with the menu system in that, and I was waiting for. I had the Nikon One system for a while, but it just wasn't. The sensor was so tiny.
Yes.
It was like a microchip in comparison to the Fuji system, which has a CMOS sensor. Well, same
I kind
size.
of erased Nikon One system from my memory, so I don't even know that
very
existed.
good. They just didn't advertise it very well. But the Z system was kind of the answer to that lighter outfit that I was looking for. So I'd just be interested to know if anyone has one of those other mirrorless systems and would potentially look at getting the Nikon One. It's curiosity more than anything.
Well, we both sold our Fuji systems effectively
and
switched to Z6s.
Yeah. Exactly. Adrian, thank you very much for your contribution to the Stream Deck Fund. Now, so Michael says, did I read the right thing? Yeah. With Nikon bringing out so many models over the last year or so, which of Nikon's Canon will be dropped? Personally awaiting a D500.
So which of Nikon Canons? Okay.
Do you mean like which of the big cameras, like the pro level cameras? Or, I mean, I think that the concentration is going to be mirrorless from pretty much here on out now. I have a feeling that the D6 is going to be the last flagship DSLR we'll see. And then maybe the smaller bodies will be upgraded.
That's the question, how good that the rumored Z8 or Z9 will be. If it's as good as D6, which I don't think it will be personally.
I don't think it will.
Who knows?
But you know.
But we will see a big push towards mirrorless. I think we all will be using mirrorless within, let's say, next 5 to 10 years.
For sure.
We will see fewer releases of DSLRs. We probably will see D850 replacement. I still think. I don't think we will see D500 replacement.
No.
Maybe not in the next couple of years.
Well, it took like 7 years for them to replace the D300S. So,
exactly. Yeah. So I think maybe the entry-level models, unless they release something below Z50 range, and then that's effectively replace 5000, 3000 series.
Yeah.
But I think professional DSLRs are here to stay, but we will see maybe less updates in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the entry-level DSLRs have always been a massive seller for Nikon. I would like them to continue to produce and update those, just because that's kind of, for some people, that's the entry point into the Nikon system. You know, as a young photographer or a new photographer, they're very accessible cameras, so it'd be good if they carry on that line, even if they make it mirrorless, but it has to be the same price point.
Yeah, so what was it, about £400, I think, with the lens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're looking at.
Exactly. Gray is watching. Thank you, Joe and Simon. Hello to Adrian Cochran. There you go. We have another very special guest on in a moment. Just want to make sure that I don't miss too many comments. Thank you so much to everyone who is commenting, by the way. It's a lot to answer. So Maynak asks about the low light performance compared to the D750. So the D750 low light performance, just to let you know in terms of autofocus, was -2 EV. The Z6 II is 6 is -6 EV. So the Z6 II low light performance in terms of autofocus will be better than the D750. That's the answer to that one.
And then come back to the normal sensor and then back illuminated sensor. That's also should improve your low light performance.
Yeah, exactly. So Nick says, would have found the central face detection most useful on a shoot this morning, and the extra battery life.
Yeah, it was interesting. When we did D780 stream the other day, so I was doing this picture of Sam kind of from the low angle.
Yeah.
And I put it on live view and I put the face detection on. And it was just so nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have that ability to just have face detection and for it to find faces. The older cameras had it, but it didn't really work in the same way, I would say.
It's a nice quality of life improvement, I would say.
It makes your life easier. That's right. Makes us lazier photographers. Blue Serpent Media says if you move the flip screen away from the body, it stops the switch over. Thank you.
Life hack.
That's a really good tip. I'll try that out this weekend when I'm shooting. Quality-wise of movies, it has improved slightly, Manabaya. Just so, I mean, you might want to have a look at the specs, but the quality of movies has improved overall. You've got faster frame rate, 4K 60p.
So on Z6, I think it's coming with a firmware update in February next year, but it's built into Z7. Steve,
the body weights have increased by roughly, I think it's 50, 60 grams, a little bit. Deeper grip, extra card slot is what's done that.
According to Tom Hogan, there are 4 visual differences
okay.
between the cameras, the previous models So it's the slight difference in prism.
Okay.
So the shape or slope of the prism.
Interesting.
Larger card slot. Ever so slightly cheaper design.
A la Z5.
That's right. And also Z6 or Z7 badge. They added 2 in there. So those are the 4 main visual differences.
And other than that, the buttons and everything. If you look at the pictures of the back, if you're a 6 user or 7 user, the interface on the back is identical. So you won't have to worry about that.
And I think the good thing is that the camera looks and feels pretty much the same as the first generation. And that means that if you come into that camera, you're going to already kind of have this memory where, you know, kind of muscle memory when you pick up the camera and you know where all the buttons are. So which is a good thing to have. So they didn't crazily kind of change the layout or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Eves says, I'm doing Fuji now, but we'll probably switch to Nikon soonish. Quite happy with the Z6 II, although Z6 is probably good enough for me. Certainly good enough for me. Z6 fabulous. Sold it for the AF. This is Mina. Says, I sold it for the AF of moving subjects. Yes, the idea is that the new cameras will be on par with DSLRs in terms of autofocus. As again, we need to test them out. If you've watched any of the like the launch events, Nikon EU did a big one, Nikon USA did a massive launch event. They're quite interesting to watch because they basically gave them to a whole bunch of professional photographers from all walks and genres of photography, you know, fashion, sports, moving horses, landscape,
and did ask them to use
them. And asked them to use them. Thank you. Yeah. And so the feedback from them is quite interesting, and they had pre-production models. So it would be worth having a look at those if you are genuinely interested. Thank you to David for your contribution to the Stream Deck Fund. He says he can't understand the purpose of the D780. Well, if you don't want to change to a Z system, that's really where that camera hands. If you watch our stream from a couple of weeks ago,
some people think that change is bad.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have D780 for that.
That's right. So if you want the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah.
All right. So before we move on, so just to explain, as you probably know, Joe is a lifestyle, portrait, fashion, bit of everything photographer. Simon, who we just heard from, is also a wildlife and general purpose and landscape photographer. Still life. Moose Peterson is who we've got up next. He is very much a wildlife and aviation photographer. And his kind of camera of choice is the D6. Before that was the D5. He's just recently done a fantastic write-up on the D6 for Nikon Owner magazine, for which we are eternally grateful. And he is going to be up next once I've done my switching round thing.
Oh boy, he has to say a lot, about the new cameras.
He does.
I can tell you that.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. No, it's not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
1, 2,
no, I'm not
3.
Ready. No pressure. So I need to switch over here. Here we go. And we're
ready.
Howdy, folks. Moose Peterson here, Nikon USA Ambassador. I trust you all are safe and sound. Really exciting news from Nikon. They have just put into our kit new tools, the Nikon Z6 II and Z7 II. Which is the right body? That's the question. It's a really valid question. I mean, you know that I just love the D6, those frames per second, the big buffer, the problem-solving abilities it brings. With the advances in the last year in technology and in math, all those really important things, Nikon has really beefed up. Nah, that's the wrong word. Advanced. No. Blown out the doors the technology packed inside those bodies. Because now you've got not one, but 2 Speed 6 processors in those bodies. What's that bring to you? I mean, you talk about the Z6 II, 14 frames per second, full res raw files. That's incredible speed in that little body. And then you've got this buffer, 3.5 times bigger, about 120 frames. I mean, that's almost up to D6 standards. And then the Z7 II, you know, you're talking about this amazing autofocus system with 473 points. I mean, and the Z6 II isn't exactly, loping along with, 273 points. And they both have their marvelous eye detection technology for people, for animals. I mean, these are real powerhouses. So the question is, which one of these is the best tool for your photography. Now, as you might imagine, with what I do with critters and aviation, that action-based kind of subject, yeah, I've ordered the Z6 too. I mean, it's just a marvelous camera. Am I going to be getting rid of the D6? Not anytime soon. Am I going to reach for the Z6 II more often than I did the Z6? Oh, I definitely think so. So it's really exciting times. I hope you look at these tools, figure out which is the best in your kit to tell your story. I guarantee you'll have the best Nikon for your photography.
Thank you very, very
Howdy,
much.
folks.
Oh, no, it started again.
Peter.
One moment.
I like so much we can play it again.
Let's just watch it again. I was doing so well. Thank you very much to Moose for that. It's such a joy to watch him and his enthusiasm for the for the product. It's brilliant.
And I think you said the right thing where you say, well, would you replace his D6? Well, no.
Yeah.
It's the tool that you choose to achieve certain result. So someone asked us about D780 before. Well, some people love to use D780. Some people prefer Z6. Well, they're quite similar. They come in different shapes or forms. And at the end of the day, you use what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's ultimately it's a tool, right? So it's whatever tool you're actually going to use. So a couple more questions coming in. I did want to mention something on the on what Moose said about the frames per second. So we talked a bit about the fact that you've got this bigger buffer and frames per second, right? And the bit rate. In the blurb, it's the word I'm looking for. And the things.
And stuff.
Thank you. The Z7 shoots 77 raw frames.
That's right.
But it's 12-bit. So the test that I want to do next week, which I will do, is what's the buffer size when you're shooting in 14-bit?
Let's place bets.
We're taking wagers.
I would say 25.
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I reckon it's going to be around 40, but I think...
40, okay. Yeah. And what about Z6?
So the Z6 is 124 frames?
Yes,
122
and that's at 12 or 14?
That's at 12-bit as well.
12, so what do you reckon at 14-bit?
80? I don't know, though.
65.
Okay, fine.
Right.
You heard it here first, folks. We'll find out who won that particular bet next
Who won that pound?
We're betting money, are we? We're betting a pound. Okay, so Woody's going to order a D500 for his next camera. That's fair enough.
Here we go.
But there you go. I mean, sometimes bringing out a new body actually kind of consolidates what your opinion was on the existing models, and you realize that, oh, you know, the technology advancements aren't what I need, so why continue to wait for something new when what I actually need is already out?
And I think that new camera doesn't mean when it was made, makes everything better. Just brings you in a photographer out of you because you want to go and use it.
No, I mean, there's definitely there's something to be said for not kind of stagnating and having new products to try and trying new techniques as well, which sometimes you can't do with older gear. So
don't you find like where you're like weirdly excited like a kid about the new product, even if it's something maybe that you've handled before?
Yeah,
but, you know, it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, it's nice to have a new piece of kit. It's like getting a new lens, you know. Then you try something different that you haven't tried before.
I giggle so much.
I believe it. So Mark makes photos, says getting a Z7 II as a second body to use alongside the Z6 will trade in D750. It was hard to go back to using a DSLR or use them side by side, mainly due to limited spread of focus points. It's a really good point, Mark, because the DSLR spread of focus points is quite limited to that sort of center of the frame, if you like, or center 2/3 of the frame. So if you do need the autofocus points in the far reaches, then it's very useful to use that on, or the D780 in live view mode.
Yeah,
it's the other way around it.
That's true. Again, quality of life improvements.
Yes, exactly. Now, will either of these new versions be better than the D850 for landscape? I would say. Yeah. I know what I'm going to say. Say what you're going to say.
Sense is the same. Dynamic range is the same, but unless the Mark II is better. But
well, the X-Speed 6 processor is different. So the
data it will process is going to be slightly different. So there's a potential improvement there.
I think there'll be a slight difference in dynamic range. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Resolution and file size, I think, will be the same.
And will it be significantly different? I wouldn't say so. I would personally test them both and see if that improvement it's worth upgrading.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Again, I'm looking at the laptop.
I know. And my job is to read the comments. You just look at the people. So
Or
James,
just tear them down.
that's right. James says glass is the controlling criteria. Bodies come and go until Nikon replicates the level of glass they've given me. No reason to change. A 105 f2.5 AIS doesn't care. It's true. It's a fab lens.
It's a good lens.
It's a beautiful lens. I've got one of those myself, a much earlier version. But still, the glass has a lot to do with it. The Z lenses are quite special. I don't know how else to describe them than that.
But I think that in days of digital photography, sensor also adds a little bit. So let's say if you're coming back to very early cameras, but let's say D780 or D80, then let's say if you upgrade even the camera like that is 5 years older than this, came out after 5 years, older, younger.
Yeah.
So you would see improvement in image quality as well. So it's a combination of both, but yes, I agree that the lenses, the optics, probably will play the biggest role in terms of image quality.
Now here's a question for you. Actually, Simon's answered it, but let's see. So XTpot says, "Hi Becky and Constantine. Are there any differences in the EVF between the original and the Mark II?"
Refresh rate. So that's what we heard. Yeah.
But in terms of optics, no. They are the same. So yes, you've got the faster refresh rate, but that's it.
So yeah, as Tom Hogan mentioned, that there's a slight change in the shape of the viewfinder. There could be something in there, but that could be just to accommodate maybe a different screen with a higher refresh rate.
Does that mean we're going to have to stock another eyepiece?
No,
I hope not.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to have the same mount.
The same eyepiece fitting.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Richard Williams didn't order his Z7 II from us. Oh well. But was embarrassed to say it. So you're forgiven if you felt slightly.
What's his name? Hold on.
So, and then a few people have asked for frame rate. Simon is actually on the line here answering questions. So this
Simon
is fantastic.
is in the house.
He's in the house. Now,
no,
sorry,
not gonna get any love in here.
No,
okay.
I didn't. I was still reading the comments. The weather sealing has been improved. So this is one of the things that Nikon talked a lot about, which they haven't necessarily given us the specs on as to how or why or what they've changed. But
how many gaskets they put in there?
Yeah, like how many extra seals,
extra rubber,
all of that. But that's what we've been told. It's more dust and water resistant than the previous models, which is kind of. It's interesting. I guess the idea is to get people to take it into those extreme situations.
They may have improved the grips on the handle of the camera.
Yeah, because those do, like some of the earlier ones did kind of flake a bit and stuff. So potentially that. Although I think that has changed with more recent productions of the 6 and 7. But earlier productions, we did find that the rubber was wearing out a little bit. Right. Are we ready for our last guest speaker?
Oh yes.
Yes. Okay. So a regular contributor to the chat is Nick Harrison. He is an event and documentary and landscape photographer, and he has very, very kindly put together a little video having looked at the specs. Now, I've known Nick for quite a few years, I would say, and he was using D750s up until the Z6 came out, and he then had...
So he switched completely to mirrorless.
Well, what he did, he had a Z6 and a D750, and then he found that the transition between the two just wasn't comfortable for work. So then he switched entirely over to Z6s. So now he runs 2 Z6s and a plethora of lenses. So
and he does what type of photography?
He does events, documentary, a bit of landscape. If you have, I think we've probably shared quite a few pictures of his on our Instagram.
Yeah. And that's interesting because a lot of people say, well, Z6 is not good for weddings or for event photography. But we actually have a photographer who used those cameras specifically for that. Exactly.
And certainly when we're allowed to do bigger weddings and more concerts and events and stuff, I will also be using a Z6.
In good old days.
In the good old days when I could shoot weddings and concerts without any problems. So yeah, I will be doing that as well. So let's go to, I just have to work out my shortcuts. There is Nick. This is his first video and first feature on here. So we're gonna see what he has to say.
Hello, I'm Nick Harrison, landscape architect and professional photographer. I've been using Nikon for over 30 years now, and for the last couple of years I've been using the Z6s. Great little cameras. Probably not picked up my DSLR in that time, so I think mirrorless is the way to go. Hopefully Nikon will continue to develop, and that's the future. In relation to the latest Mark II, and my main work is in documentary or promotional photography. So the AF improvements are most welcome. The low light capabilities, those improvements are most welcome as well. I encounter quite a number of occasions where low light is the thing to be tackled, so these improvements are welcome. The SD card slot, I've never really missed a second slot, but it will make use of some of the many spare SD cards I have in my bag, so that's fine. More processing power is always useful, although I've never found the Z6 to be lacking. And the battery grip, I've never really been one to add anything weight or size to the camera, so I don't think I'd particularly need that. I can understand others might do. I can get around about well over 1,000 shots out of each charge, and with the new improved batteries, then that's only set to increase. Now, the viewfinder sensitivity in terms of switching between viewfinder and screen on the back, apparently that's been adjusted so that it doesn't blank out whilst you're arranging or your hands are near the screen on the back. So that's an improvement and most welcome. No GPS built in, but apparently the SnapBridge can enable that, so I'm going to be checking that out. So all in all, the new Mark II looks like a big improvement, or a continuing improvement of the Z6. I'm hoping to get a couple more years out of my current Z6s. This isn't the Mark II, unfortunately, but that would be the natural progression for me in the time when I need to replace or upgrade from this. But yes, that's most welcome news today. I hope my comments have been of interest and use. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Nick, for doing that for us. That was brilliant. And there were some interesting points about, for example, the GPS. Now, SnapBridge actually pretty much solves the GPS problem, I think, for most people.
Oh, you're on a slippery slope, Becky.
Someone's going to attack me now for saying that. But I mean, the D6 is the only camera with GPS built into it now, apart from the D50-300.
Mm-hmm.
And is it a deal breaker? Not
Let's
for
be
me.
honest.
Yeah, it's not a big issue, but all very valid points. So thank you very, very much, Nick, for that. Nick has a tendency to kind of use his equipment until it's falling apart. So, you know, the Z6s will probably go for a few more years for him. I was actually hoping that someone would say, I'm not going to upgrade because I'm going to stick with my DSLR, but nobody said that. Yeah.
No, our social media person, she deletes all those comments like this, so that's why I don't see them.
No, it's not true. But I did think, I had asked a few people to put together videos, and I am very, very grateful to everyone who has contributed to today's live stream. But there wasn't a single person that said, will I, stick with DSLRs over Zs? No, because I think that the products are kind of at a point now where they're good enough for almost everybody.
That's true.
All kind of ventures. We need to have John's wife as a guest on how much lighter the Z. Yeah, she
will be the judge.
Exactly. We need to have special guest feature from her. So let's just see, a few people late to the party. You can catch up later, that's fine.
The party has just started.
Yeah. Now, in terms of delivery dates, so please do, if you've got any final questions, if I've missed earlier stuff, I'm really sorry, but there were so many comments. I have to thank you all for your comments and your questions, and thank you to Simon for answering them in between when we can't keep our eye on the ball at all times. It's very technical, putting live videos and stuff and... Oh dear. But if you have any final questions, we are, drum roll, having, that was a terrible drum roll, we are having Rishi Shearer, for those of you that know Nikon Rishi. He will be here next week in the shop, all being well.
Right here.
Right, probably something.
Are we going to just stare him down?
Sandwich him, socially distanced. No, we are going to have him down in the department. He's going to bring some goodies. He's going to bring the Z6 II and 7 II. So if you have any kind of burning technical questions that we haven't been able to address, please do send them over. If you want to record like a little video question, it might give me a total headache trying to switch between scenes, but I'd be happy to try. So whatever format you want to send your question in, audio message, video, or just plain old email or text on the chat, then please do that.
Send us a fax.
Yeah, send us. We
If
don't
you've got
have...
an old typewriter.
You can send it in the post.
I'd like perfume on my paper as well, so just kind of, and a kiss and an envelope sealed with a proper seal.
You're taking it too far.
No.
Trevor and one more says that they're not changing to Z.
Okay, interesting. And I was also surprised to see how many people said they were changing, so that's interesting. For those of you that want to know when the release dates are, Z6 II is the 5th of November, Z7 II is the 10th of December.
10th of December. And we have enhanced part exchange, so if you want to trade in your equipment, you will get additional £180 on top of what we offer for your equipment.
Yeah, so if you do want to get a trade-in quote now, send us an email to the usual shop address, info@grayserwestminster.co.uk, and we'll send you a quote, and then obviously we'll give you the enhanced part exchange as well. That offer is valid from October to sometime in January that I've forgotten.
Was it 31st of January?
No.
Nope.
I think it's the 10th of January.
10th of
or
January.
14th anyway. It will be on our
Confirm
website.
this with us. Probably. Good idea.
Yeah, but it is for a couple of months. So if you do want to trade in, we are taking orders now. So we have opened up the pre-order list. We also have a regular waiting list for those of you that don't necessarily want to jump on the bandwagon yet, but you do want to be informed when we get stock. We'll have a waiting list for you as well. David is holding on to his F6. That's excellent choice. We will be doing a
No, one question I want to ask Grisha when he's here next week is, well, with F6 discontinued, when are we going to see F7 on the market?
I don't think Rishi will know the answer, but I would love you to challenge him and
I'll ask anyway.
Ask anyway. I really wish that there was an F7 or something. It's so sad. We will be doing a live stream on the F6. The plan, everything went a bit unplanned, but the plan is not next week, but the week after we will be doing our F6 live stream.
I've got a camera on loan from Becky for the following 2 weeks where I'm going to shoot film.
And treat it very, very carefully.
Constantine film together.
Shocking.
So that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be very exciting. And hopefully it'll all come out all right. And if it doesn't, I have some great shots from the F6.
Well, my question was where the memory card goes to. That's,
right.
That's the question.
And what's the deal with back screen? It's not in full colour?
Yeah, and where USB cable goes to as well. So...
Good. Already off to an excellent start. So thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon. Thank you
very much.
did I miss someone? David, your contribution to the Coffee/Stream Deck Fund. Thank you very much for that.
I think we can do another hour. Like just let's do another hour, Becky.
We could easily talk about more, but I will say that next week is going to be so much fun. So please do come back for next week's stream. If you
fun is all around.
This is what I have to deal with. This is the problem. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, and then you'll be notified when we go live next week. But it will be 2:15 next week. Genuinely looking forward to seeing you all there, and send over your questions.
Come join us.
Exactly. Thank you very much to everybody for today. We will see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend and rest of your week. Got anything else to say?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. There we go.